It's a perfect day in north central Texas, a perfect day for an auto race, and that's exactly what we have in store for you. After 14 straight days of rain, we now have a sunny, bright, clear day for the 15th round of the Trans Am in 1984. There is the history of the 84 series, beginning back in May, running across the United States and Canada, coming here to Texas for the next to last round. Now, on the back of the grid today, we have an interesting story. The man who stands poised at the brink of the Trans Am Championship is Tom GLOY. GLOY crashed in practice. Now he has to start at the very back of the grid. He has a long way to go to get to that championship. We had an opportunity to speak with Tom a little bit earlier, and he told us what his chances are for this championship.
Well, this track is obviously going to make a difference for the championship. You know, we certainly can clinch the championship here. This circuit's got some problems, without a doubt. It's pretty unsafe in a lot of areas. I think a lot of things will happen during the race. I've got to be careful, but I want to get the title over with. I want to go to Las Vegas. I want to go to that race with the title in hand, so all we have to do is go win. You know, my crew deserves to have some fun, so I'd like to get it over with here.
At the other end of the grid, sitting on the pole, Willie T. Ribbs. Here's what he had to say.
Missing the first 4 races has made it impossible for me to win the championship, but it's not impossible for me to win this race. I've won 3 races: Daytona, Minnesota, New York. I'm ready. I'm on a roll. I got the best average in the Trans Am Championship this year. I'm coming here to Texas, and it's going to be like the Alamo all over again. We're going to get it on.
Get it on is what Willie T. does best, and we are anticipating the start. A good crowd is gathered. The balloons are going up, the Texas flag flying, and we're prepared for the start of the Texas Challenge Trans Am. Of all the thousands of people who were gathered here at Green Valley Raceway near Fort Worth, Texas, I've managed to grab the best seat in the house. Hi, everybody. I'm John Burchard, and I'm sitting in the back of the Pontiac pace car as we roll out on the pace lap, getting ready for the start of the Texas Challenge Trans Am. Working with me today is my colleague, racing driver Mike BROCKMAN, who's in the pits. And Michael, the viewers and I have got a view from the catbird seat.
And it doesn't matter where you're sitting today, you're going to see some incredible racing. Historically, the Trans Am has produced some of the best racing in America with names like Dan Gurney, Parnelli Jones, and Mark Donahue. And today's certainly going to be no exception. Tom GLOY could win the championship here today with a first-place finish, but unfortunately he crashed yesterday in qualifying and must start at the back of the pack in his backup car. Now, with the quality of drivers you have in this series, such as Willie T. Ribbs and Greg Pickett on the front row, he's really going to have a tough row to hoe. And it's a very narrow, tight, demanding racetrack. Now, back to you in the pace car, John.
It's been 17 years since they've held a road race at this facility, a professional road race, and it's a brand new circuit for all of the teams here. And what a group of teams we have on this 1.6-mile road course. We're in the back part of it now, heading around to the east end. That comes out onto the start-finish line straight away. At the end of that straight is a 180-degree hairpin turn, very difficult, very tight, followed by a short straight, and then we get back out onto the more of the back part of the course.
And here's the starting grid, led by Willie T. Ribbs in the Roush Protofab Motorcraft Capri, followed by his teammate Greg Pickett, also in a Capri. Then we have David Hobbs, the defending champion, in the Diatley Budweiser Corvette, followed by Paul Miller in the turbocharged Porsche Carrera. Then young Darren Brassfield, winner of the last race at Riverside, California, and Wally Dallenbach Jr. in the Camaro, followed by the rest of the field. The pole sitter has the option here as how fast he brings them up to the start-finish line, and Willie T. Ribbs is bringing them up very slowly. They're grouped very nicely. Look like they're going to get a start. And they've got the green. They have to accelerate down this long straightaway and almost come to a stop for that first turn. It's a 180-degree hairpin. Now, you always look for something on the first turn of the first lap and hope these guys get through it, and it looks like Willie T. Ribbs is through the first turn. He's followed by his teammate, Greg Pickett, and David Hobbs in the Diatley Corvette, then Paul Miller and young Darren Brassfield in the other Diatley Corvette.
I'm back from my wind-blown ride in the pace car and picking up the action here in turn 2. This course is very narrow. These cars, you'll notice it as we go along toward the back part of the course. There are concrete walls along each side, and a number of cars have kissed those walls during practice this weekend. Narrow, bumpy, difficult, and there goes a hood flying up in the air, somebody in the back part of the pack. Now we can see, as we were describing a moment ago, how close these concrete walls are to the edge of the course. See them stringing around there. Now, if anybody makes the most minor mistake, bang into the wall they go. There's the leader, Willie T. Ribbs, and the number 64, Roush Protofab Mercury Capri, heading around the last turn and back out onto the start-finish line straightaway once again.
John, we've got to make note here that Tom Gloy's already started to make his move. On the first turn of the first lap, he'd already passed several cars, and he's working his way up through this pack.
We'll keep an eye on Gloy's progress during the course of the day. Our leaders now heading back to turn 1. It's Ribbs and Pickett, the teammates, now running 1 and 2. David Hobbs, the defending Trans Am champ in the red Corvette, the number 1 car, in 3rd place. And we have a quick look at Les Lindley, the car that lost his hood just a few moments ago. We'll be back with more of the Texas Challenge Trans Am following these messages. Back to the action of the Texas Challenge Trans Am with Willie T. Ribbs in the lead, and that red Corvette, David Hobbs, now in 2nd place, having passed Greg Pickett. There's Les Lindley, the car that lost a hood a moment ago. There's another part flying off. Mike, isn't this guy a moving hazard?
Well, that's a judgment call by the stewards. If he keeps having problems, they'll surely call him in.
Whoa, Pancho Weaver spins out and then picks up his act once again to get back on the track. There's Tom Gloy. He has now moved up through half the field. He's now in 11th place, heading toward the front of the pack as he goes. Remember, he's seeking the championship here today. Les Lindley is in the pits, and here's Mike Brockman.
Les has had problems since the beginning of the race when he lost that hood. Now they're removing that front fender. They're going to try to get him back out into the fight.
Out on the track once again, we see David Hobbs currently in 2nd place. This is better than he's done almost all season. They've had an awful time with that series of cars in the Diatley camp. Lindley heads back out onto the track once again. A quick look at 3rd place man Greg Pickett, followed by Darren Brassfield in the Corvette. That is Richard Wall in the blue Camaro, followed by the white Porsche driven by Paul Miller. David Hobbs, the 2nd place man, is in the pits. Here is Mike Brockman.
David, you were running 2nd. You were running strong. Looks like you were staying with Willie. What happened?
Well, the drive shaft broke, and just adds to the complete season. Absolute out of luck all the time. I mean, saw it last week at Riverside. We had a flat tire when I would have been a real good 2nd, and Sears Point, I got pushed off the road, and now we're going fine. The only other competitive car there, drive shaft break. So just, you know, I can't say I'm disappointed I've got over that now.
A tough season for the defending Trans Am champion. Our leader once again, Willie T. Ribbs, out in front, looking very tidy as he goes, and there is another Corvette, the Diatley car driven by Darren Brassfield, off the road and parked. And there's Paul Miller's Porsche shedding parts as he goes. Parts flying off from the left side of that car. When we get around the corner here, we'll be able to see what's happening with it. That fire, by the way, is no problem. That's a turbocharger overrun there. Now we can see that, yes, the left rear fender coming apart. He's either hit a car or the wall. Behind Paul Miller, you see Richard Wall in the blue Camaro, and tight right behind Wall, you see the teammate of Wally Dallenbach Jr., Dennis Ossie, who is best known as an IMSA racer. This weekend, he is here driving the 2nd Colorado Connection Camaro. Here is our leader, Willie T. Ribbs, keeping it between the fences very nicely. Behind him, you see P.J. Browlier, a California driver. Then Tom Walker in the Pontiac Fiero. That's John Brandt in the Corvette. And coming into the pits is Paul Miller.
I'm surprised they haven't brought Paul in earlier. That fender's been flopping in the breeze ever since the very first lap. The real story down here is the car that was in 2nd place. Greg Pickett is in the pits. He must have a problem with the gear lever. He's banging on it. We've got a crew member leaning in the window trying to adjust or fix something and get him back out there so he'll have a chance to salvage this championship.
That's blue Camaro is new 2nd place man Richard Wall of Arcadia, California. He is being pursued by the number 88 Camaro, driven by Dennis Ossie. There's Ossie moving by a back marker and heading up toward the 180-degree first turn. And he'll get on the brakes before he makes that hard left-hander, moving in from the outside line. Takes it around and moves around without any problem. He is pursuing Richard Wall at this point. His teammate, Wally Dallenbach Jr., has already dropped out of this race with a push rod problem. Wally, one of the bright up-and-coming stars in this series. It's a shame that he's had to drop out at this point.
John, someone we've got to keep an eye on is John Jones. He started in the 5th row in the 3rd Roush Protofab Capri. He's been moving steadily up through the field. We better keep an eye on him.
Talk about young drivers. Jones is still a teenager. Very talented youngster out of Thunder Bay, Ontario. Our leader once again passing by, threading his way through traffic carefully and keeping away from those walls. Willie T. Ribbs out in the lead. And there is Tom Gloy sitting beside the court, and we have a spin. The number 31 car, that's Gary Fritz Jones, who comes to rest there. Traffic moving by him. Tom Gloy is walking away from his car now, and with Greg Pickett in the pits, if Pickett can get back out and race some more, he still has a chance at the championship. If he can't, then Gloy will take the championship sitting beside the road. What an anticlimactic way of winning a crown.
John, here's another apparent victim of this roughed-up racetrack, Pancho Weaver. And with a look at our standings, Willie T. Ribbs is still in the lead. We'll be back with action in just a moment.
We've just moved past the midpoint of the Texas Challenge Trans Am, and that's Willie T. Ribbs out in front. Willie T., the '83 Rookie of the Year in the Trans Am Series, started the season with the Diatley Motorsports crew, had an altercation with Bob Lobenberg at Road Atlanta. That resulted in him departing. Now he's joined up with the Roush Protofab organization, and he is out in front in this race. That's Richard Wall, currently in second place in the blue Camaro, doing very nicely. Richard Wall, when he's not behind the wheel of that Camaro, is the builder of race cars. We have Pancho Weaver back in his car once again. We thought he was through for the day. No such business. He's back out there. Our leader, Willie T. Ribbs, comes out onto the fastest part of this course. Mike Brockman, what kind of speeds they turn on this straightaway?
Well, this is an old drag strip. I would imagine before they get down to turn one, they're probably running 140+ miles an hour.
The last professional road race to run on this circuit, the Trans Am, back in 1967. There is some vintage footage that you can see the era of the cars. And in that race were two of the great names of racing, Dan Gurney and Parnelli Jones. And here they come to the finish. And Dan Gurney took it by a door handle over the great PJ. Let's take a look at that finish again. See if you can tell which car won. Flagman does his thing. Can you tell which car crossed the finish line first? If you can't, it's the car on the outside. Both men driving the Mercury Cougars of that era. The smiling winner, a yawning loser.
And here's our third place car, Dennis Ozzie, driving the second Colorado Connection Camaro. This team is managed by Wally Dallenbach Sr., one of the great names in racing. Now, his son, unfortunately, Wally Dallenbach Jr., is out of the race right now, but I'm certain he has a bright future in racing.
We have a car off course in the first turn. That's the second place man, Richard Wall, the number 43 Camaro. A lot of smoke coming out of it. Looks like the engine has given up. That's the fourth second place man to have trouble today. The leader, Willie T. Ribbs, seems to be zooming along with no great problems, but the second place people have had all the trouble. The pace car is out. That bunches up the field. And that brings John Jones, the young Canadian, now up into second place. An outstanding job on his part. He's been very careful. And we'll be back with more of the Trans Am after this. The pace car is out here at the Texas Challenge Trans Am, and the field is bunched up behind leader Willie T. Ribbs. We will have John Jones in second place now. There's Del Taylor, who gets a bit of a spin, gets off the track, but gets back on again with no real problem. Dell is one of the people who runs only occasionally in the Trans Am Series. There's Les Lindley's car. Minus a few parts, he had his problems earlier in the day, but he's still out there. And speaking of out there, Pancho Weaver returns to the action in the number 8 Camaro. Our leader, Willie T. Ribbs, take green flag. We are back in conditions once again.
John, back to racing conditions, but the yellow and red oil flag is being displayed for turn one. Richard Wall obviously laid some oil down, and there's a slick condition in turn.
Earlier, we saw the fact that Tom Gloy was sitting beside the racetrack, and we mentioned the fact that there was a problem with his car, that he was out of it, and he'd still win the championship. Here is Mike Brockman with Tom Gloy's crew chief, Chris Erickson.
Tom running fifth. I see he quit about the same time Pickett did. What happened?
Just in the past start finish, we saw that the car couldn't get into the ball. He went by with his hands up, tried to get it around as far as he could. He stayed out there on the...
The white car is Gloy's. It's parked next to a red back marker. That means that now officially Gloy has won the 1984 Am Championship. Greg Pickett out of the race. Pickett had to win both straight and the next one at Las Vegas. And so now Gloy wins the championship sitting beside the road. There's leader Willie T. Ribbs. And behind him you see the black car number 88. That's driven by Dennis Ozzie. There's Greg Pickett, the very unhappy man. Ozzie bringing the car into the pits now. It appears that it's an engine problem, and the engine is the story with this team this weekend. Wally Dallenbach Sr. has a new concept that he wants to introduce to the Trans Am Series. He wants to run larger displacement engines with lower compression, 9-to-1 compression. The theory is that the engines will live longer that way, and that, of course, will reduce the racing budget of these teams. And, of course, the budget is a very big problem for people who don't have enormous sponsorship. So the chief steward allowed him to run that engine this weekend. It has been quite competitive throughout the course of the weekend, and that's very encouraging. It's too bad that it has to end this way. To find out the trouble, here's Mike Brockman.
Dennis, you were running strong, sounded good, then the car went off song. What happened?
It's possible that we picked up something in the fuel system or that a pump has gone dead. But for the last 4 laps, it was an increasingly digressing problem, and it was running good up until that point.
Willie T. Ribbs out in front here at the Texas Challenge Trans Am. We'll be back with more racing after this. 2 laps to go in the Texas Challenge Trans Am, and Willie T. Ribbs out in front where he's been all afternoon. He is followed by John Jones, the young Canadian, in the number 62 car. The Roush Protofab Motorcraft Mercury Capri team has had a very strong weekend here. True, Greg Pickett has dropped out of the race, but the other 2 cars are finishing 1-2, provided nothing goes wrong in these last couple of laps. Mike, do you think that these 2 teammates are racing each other at this stage of the game?
Well, John, I don't think so. It looks like Willie has such a lead, he's just kind of cooling it. But I guarantee you one thing, if Jones came up on his bumper, he'd put it down and give him a race for his money.
A little bit earlier, we were talking with Willie T. Ribbs about his strategy for a last lap race to the finish, and here is what he had to say.
Last lap, last corner, right next to the guy who I'm right next to in the championship. We're going to go right to the line, whether we cross it on our head or we cross it on 4 wheels or upside down or cartwheeling. I got to be across the line first.
And first is exactly where he is at this point. Mike, you've been out in front on the last lap of many auto races. Tell us what goes through a driver's mind at this stage.
John, it's amazing how many things can go through your mind. Every creak, every moan becomes potentially terminal. Also, when you've led from wire to wire, you start to think it's so easy. Where is everybody? You know, what's happened to everybody? The other thing of victory is something you've wanted so much, it's difficult to believe that it's almost over and you really are going to win it.
Mike, do you worry about the other competitors on the track?
John, you worry about everything. You know, another competitor can put 1 wheel wrong, ruin your whole day. You can have a flat tire. There's just all kind of things, all kind of gremlins that can reach up and bite you. You just don't know.
Well, nobody's bitten Willie T. Ribbs so far, and there is second place man, his teammate John Jones. Moving out onto the start-finish line straight away, Willie T. Ribbs. His crew giving him a cheer, and we have a winner of the Texas Challenge Trans Am. The checkered flag is out. The crew congratulating each other on a fine victory today. Our winner, Willie T. Ribbs, his 4th victory in the Trans Am Series in 1984. John Jones, the young Canadian, finishing in 2nd place. There's Charlie Sellex, one of the principals of the Roush Protofab team, congratulating his people. And the unofficial results as they stand at the moment. Ribbs and Jones, then Jim Miller, then John Brandt in the Corvette.
We got Willie T. Ribbs in the winner's circle. Willie, is wire to wire for you. Were there any problems at all?
It was absolutely fantastic. The car, the preparation, everything. I mean, the Roush Protofab team, Motorcraft, I mean, they're tested tough, and we showed them today.
There was a lot of talk about the track conditions. How was the track for you?
Fantastic. I mean, it was better than my bed at home. That's how comfortable it was.
So the rough conditions didn't bother your Capri at all?
No, fantastic. I mean, I'm thinking about moving down here to Dallas now. Me and J.R. Ewing.
Well-deserved win. Congratulations.
Thank you.
There's Tom Gloy's car coming in on the end of the hook. That's the car of the new champion, and Mike has moved over for a word with Tom Gloy.
Tom, you're a real racer. I know you'd rather won it on the racetrack. You know, you had to sit there and watch Ribbs win it, but you won the championship.
Yeah, long weekend for us. We rode a car off yesterday, had to start at the back of the field. The car was working good. It really looked like we were gonna do what we needed to do, and then something broke in the gear shift linkage. We'd love to win it on the track, there's no doubt. But you know, it's only my 2nd non-finish the entire year, and that's a credit to my crew. The guys have been fabulous. My sponsor, 7-Eleven, have been great. You know, my Capri's been running all year, real strong. she's just a great car.
You've been a favorite all year, Tom. You won the championship. Congratulations.
I tell you, it's been 4 years, and I'm real happy this one's over with.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
A long struggle for the new champion, Tom Gloy. The official results, Willie T. Ribbs the winner with his teammate John Jones in second place. Jim Miller in the Joe Huffaker Pontiac came in third, and John Brandt in his Corvette was fourth. Now let's take a look at the money they've won. Willie T. Ribbs with more than $10,000. John Jones gets over $6,200. That converts into more money than that when he goes back north of the border. The point standings. With one race to go, Tom Gloy has clinched the championship and Greg Pickett is second. Willie T. Ribbs moves up to third place now, and the absent Bob Lobenberg rests in fourth. The total prize money so far in the 1984 season, Tom Gloy on top, Greg Pickett doing very well. And Willie T. Ribbs, Darren Brasfield, and Bob Lobenberg rounding out the top five. So the Trans Am has come back to Texas and produced a new champion. We thank everybody for their Texas-style hospitality. Our congratulations to champion Tom Gloy and race winner Willie T. Ribbs. For Mike Brockman, this is John Burchard. So long from Texas. This has been a Cinevid International presentation produced in association with ESPN.